Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Chasing Health podcast. I have with me today a very special guest, Devya. Her and I met back, I think it was in December. In Scottsdale. It was my second coaching conference that I've been to through NCI and BCI, and great conference. Met a lot of great people. Her being one of those people, and we've kept in touch since then. And want to have her on the show, come share her story, and who knows what else we'll get into. I'm sure there'll be a lot of great information for you guys. But welcome, Devya, to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Chase. Yes, hello. My name is Devya Flukiger. We met at Impact and Income was the conference, the NCI BCI. I think it was really interesting getting to know Chase as we both come from a medical background as well as registered nurses before we got into nutrition coaching. And I think we just came in with pretty similar ideas as to why we got into it. I don't know about Chase, but I found it really interesting after working in Western medicine, taking care of patients who could have avoided being in the hospital altogether if they just knew how to take care of their health and their wellness. And that starts with essentially what you eat. I don't know. How about you, Chase? What got you from nursing to coaching?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, mine all started I got into this after like my own weight loss transformation, but even from there though, like I wanted to pursue this full time because I did see the gap. And like so many times, I mean, I'm sure you can resonate with this as well. It sounds like, like you're looking at a patient who is just like, and you just wonder to yourself, like, what if someone would have been there 15, 20, 30 years ago? Now, granted, I don't think there even was such thing as like a nutrition coach 20, 30 years ago from today, but it's like, let's like stop that now for the future generation, so they're not in those same places later on.
Exactly. If they could avoid the healthcare system altogether, because something that I try to preach to my clients and just the people in general is that tertiary care, so like care given in the hospital, in my eyes, is a last resort type thing. Like you have done everything else that you can do for your health, and then that's just your last resort. And of course, agreed. Yes, having gone through my own health journey myself, I had a really bad relationship with food for a long time, and I suffered a lot of weight fluctuations myself. And it was definitely a huge struggle. And it wasn't until I had a coach that showed me how flexible I can be with my food options that I then was a lot less prone to having that terrible, like notorious binge purge cycle with food type thing. But no, Chase, your story, honestly, it really inspires me.
Thank you.
Reading your posts about your story was amazing.
Thank you. And, I want to also kind of go take a step back from a moment. You started to mention like your story as well. Go ahead and, if you don't mind, sharing a little bit with the listeners, like a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So well, for starters, I never had, well, I do now, but for a long time, I didn't have a very healthy relationship with my body, for starters, because I was just never born naturally cute and petite, like the girls you see in movies type thing that we've watched growing up. And watching all that stuff growing up really much informed what you would want to embody and that sort of thing. So as a result, I started to be really restricted with how I ate. And I watched how my mom ate, and she'd always just go for runs and eat very little because that's how it was in her generation. And I partook in a bunch of sports. I did rugby, I did track, I did swimming. And don't get me wrong, the sports themselves were fun, but I wasn't doing it for the sake of enjoying them. I unfortunately did it for the sake of wanting to look a certain way. So that essentially deterred me from just enjoying life in general when you get caught in this mindset where you just feel trapped in this body that you don't love or appreciate. So I tried lots of crazy programs. I don't know if you've heard of any of them, but like I did, oh my God, Tony Horton's like P90X program. I did Shaun T's Insanity program, where it's kind of like boot camp sweat style training at home. And then I've gone through 3 coaches myself. It's been a lot of trial and error until I figured out what worked for me. And once I established a healthy relationship with food, I wanted to essentially help other clients do the same thing, and for people to know like it is okay to eat. Because another issue that I had as well was sometimes I didn't want people to watch me eat growing up. Sometimes at night I would sneak downstairs in the pantry to grab food and I didn't want people to watch me eat it. It's embarrassing, but that's just what happened. And I shared it in a couple of my posts. But I just want people to know that they're not alone and that we've all had that struggle. And I find that's how I kind of bond with my clients. And that's how we start to build and start to form a healthier and new relationship with food.
So like also like along the same lines of building a healthy relationship with food, what are some of those like first key steps that, either yourself or you take your clients through? If they, I think a lot of people come into like, coaching and such like with this, you know, good and bad food. There's like, everything that like is a diet food is considered a good food, but all the fun foods like tacos, pizza, French fries, ice cream, desserts, whatever, are all bad foods, quote unquote. And really it takes a while to kind of break down that barrier for a lot of people. But how do you start initiating that, like that process of like healing that relationship with food?
Absolutely. That's a great question. It's definitely a mindset thing. So yeah, agreed. I don't specifically label food as good nor bad with my clients. Um, like, don't get me wrong, there are foods aren't exactly ideal for you, but when you're just starting to make changes in your health journey, you're much less likely to succeed if you tell yourself what you can't have. So instead, I find it's important to focus on prioritizing what your body needs type thing and it to begin that positive relationship with food and with health with your body. So I have my clients make small changes, especially if they're just starting. So just to start, for example, one of my clients, I said, hey, how about you just start home making your food? I don't care what it is, just start home making your food. And then as you do that, let me know how your energy is. Let me know how your sleep quality is. How's your libido? How does that make you feel? And then essentially what happened was she came back to me and said, oh my God, I have all this energy now to get me through a 12-hour shift. My sleep is better. That's really interesting. And I find that when you have that kind of more of a positive correlation with whole foods, you just start to naturally crave the less healthy food less. However, whenever a client comes back and says, oh my God, I cheated, I'm like, oh, what'd you have? They're like, I had cake. And I was like, okay, did it taste good? They're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. Like, I don't make a huge deal out of it. I don't punish them for it because don't get me wrong, I enjoyed a piece of banana bread with peanut butter on it like a week ago. Like, I'm not gonna freaking judge. Like, it's just a matter of that balance and more so just focusing on trying to add the foods that your body needs, and then you gradually crave the less healthy food over time. I find it's kind of, I don't know if you noticed this, but something I noticed like when we were in high school, when alcohol is taboo and there's underage drinking, I find it depends on how your parents raise you. So for example, my mom let me try a couple sips of wine a few times growing up type thing. No big deal. So when I was in high school, I wasn't one of those kids. I was like, oh yeah, I need to go for Rager and drink and blah, blah, blah. I find that when you make taboo like alcohol or unhealthy food, if you make that a taboo, then the people tend to crave things that they're told that they can't have.
Yes, I definitely have seen that. And actually that's something one of my most recent clients that started a couple weeks ago. She, was really struggling with like the good or bad food mentality, but also like just not feeling like she could have like the bad foods into her routine. And or so like literally one of our goals each week is I want you to have one thing each day that you would consider, and I don't even want her to look at it as like it is a bad food, but just the foods that you would normally not work into your diet, so to speak. I want you to work one of those in each day into your calories. Like log it first thing throughout in the morning, plan it to have it that day, work around it. And after a while, your mind will have to realize, oh, I can have this when I want it. I mean, it's just like, I'm in a calorie deficit right now and I just had a sandwich for lunch and I had some chips with it. Like, normally somebody would think, oh, you can't have chips when you're on a diet. And it's like, sure you can, like, you just make it work and it's totally fine. Like, there's no point for like, stressing over like those small little food decisions, because honestly, like, the more you stress about it, the more worrisome and guilt you're going to associate with it. And it's just going to lead down a pretty nasty spiral towards the more guilt.
Absolutely. And I also find that when you have that more of a deprivation type mindset of I can't have X, Y, and Z, I find that on average, it actually tends to put one to be more prone to binging, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when they start to eat an entire bag of chips or a whole sleeve of cookies versus, oh, like one or two cookies, you log it in your calories or whatever, and then you move on with your life. You don't think about it. And it's a lot easier. So like it's called balance for a reason.
Exactly. And and it's just like, think about like a little kid. Like if you tell, a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, you can't have that, or don't, go push that button over there. Like don't turn that light switch on or off, like whatever it is. Like what are they going to do? They're going to want to do exactly what you told them not to do. I mean, it's just human nature. And so like, as soon as you say you can't have food, one thing I always associate, and you definitely will as well, I'm sure, with being a nurse, is like, think about when you tell your patients they can't have anything to eat or drink. What is the first thing that they want? They want something to eat or drink, like every single time. So like, it's just how psychology works. Like they can be fine all day without eating or drinking anything, but as soon as you say you can't, that's when they're going to want something.
Oh yeah, I've had quite a few patients that are scheduled to go for a gastroscopy or something, and then they get one of the visitors to sneak in frickin' McDonald's or something. Like it's, yeah, oh my God, it drives me insane, but it's so frustrating. I'm like, instead I tell a patient, instead of telling them don't eat, I just say for the next 12-ish hours after midnight, let's just have ice chips or something. Instead of, I try to avoid the words don't eat type thing. And then I just suddenly look at the bedside. I'm like, okay, is there any food around? Okay, no, cool. We're just gonna slide out rails like here.
Another thing you mentioned earlier was kind of like that relationship with like sports and working out, like, and like doing it for like the, maybe not, maybe the wrong reasons, like of like wanting to do it because you wanted to lose weight or look a certain way and not just for the fun of them. And, I think, that can definitely resonate with some people who maybe work out for reasons that are maybe not the healthiest reason, or at least the mindset around it. It's like, if I go to the gym and I'm going to do X amount of cardio and then, this and that, and these boot camps and such, then I can eat more. And I feel like that just can end up also creating a very unhealthy relationship between food and the scale and activity and exercise. All those things can get tied together, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I find that's kind of like there's that. And then also I find some people use exercise as a punishment after they have cookies or a cake or whatever. For sure. Instead of viewing it as, hey, this is good for me and this feels good and I genuinely enjoy it. That's also another issue that I find a lot of my clients have. And another thing that's really unfortunate is because it's such a great antidepressant and it gives you all those healthy endorphins, it's unfortunate people don't see exercise as such like a great just mental health medicine for you. And you, as opposed to doing it because it feels good and it's good for you, people also tend to look at it as a chore as well. It's like, I have to go to the gym, okay, type thing. And don't get me wrong, like there are some days where you don't feel like going and you go anyways. You're like, okay, I'm actually glad I went type thing. But also as long as you're attuned to your body as well, because there have for sure been a few days where I definitely took some extra rest days. So to give you an example, actually, in the last month, from like mid-April to 5 days ago, I ended up getting sick twice. I don't know why, but I usually don't get sick that often. And I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'm pushing myself too hard, just mentally, physically, I wasn't sure. So for that reason, I was 100% okay with taking quite a few extra rest days for that reason. So it's just a matter of finding that balance between what your body needs, what feels right, and when you do need to take a rest day as well. It's just a matter of learning how to be tuned to your body when it's telling you. And that's something that I really like to educate my clients on as well, for the sake of that long-term sustainability and health.
Yeah. And it's just like, and just a little side note that I like just like popped in my head while we're talking about like this like relationship between like exercise and calories and such. Just like, guys, like if you're using like MyFitnessPal or something like that, please make sure you're not eating back your calories that it's telling you to. Like it's just like a random like little thought popped in my head. I'm just like, I need to make sure people know this as well, because like like MyFitnessPal is great for a lot of things that it is not. And but like guys, like you should not be working out just to burn calories. And besides that, even it's like those aren't even accurate too. Like they can be as much as 50% off. Like, I mean, and people have asked me, they're like, why do people look at them, or like, why are they there? And it's like, it's all like to kind of like, drive you to work out harder and such. But it's like the only time the only reason I look at the number Like the only reason I track mine, like I have an Apple Watch, and the only reason I ever like actually track mine is not to actually see how many calories I'm burning. What I use it for is more of like comparing one workout to the next. Meaning like if I'm doing 2 strength training workouts back to back on each day, maybe the same thing or whatever it is. If one says I burned 250 calories and another says I burned 350 calories, okay, well, I'm going to know I worked out harder on the 350 calorie day, but I know that that 350 calories is not accurate. Like I'm not looking about like how many calories I'm burning. To me, it's just more like just kind of like a skill for effort, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it as well. And also, especially if you're doing strength training, as you know, Chase, like it's not about the amount of calories you burn right
No.
there. With strength training, it's very different because you tend to burn more later anyways, trying to recover. And on top of that, especially for a lot of our clients, majority of our clients are pursuing body recomposition, so like increasing muscle, decreasing fat, that sort of thing. It's it's not necessarily about just calories in or out. It's is the thing. Um, so that's no, I don't use I use Fitbit. I have a Fitbit watch, so I
Okay.
connect to the Fitbit app,
Mhm.
and I just use it to maintain like the trends for calculating or just like adding up, what I'm eating because I like to look at that sort of thing and maintaining my steps and logging my water to keep myself accountable. That's all I like to use it for.
Mhm.
um, Although I will say there are some people where tracking can be triggersome, of course, for them. I do have a couple clients where they're not even comfortable with weighing their food. So for them, I have them just use plate portion quantities for how to quantify their food. And they have the option to either send me pictures or at least weigh their food with cups and teaspoons and tablespoons type thing. So it's also a matter of being okay with being open with your coach about what you're open to doing in terms of what you are comfortable with as well. It doesn't have to be as stringent if that is triggersome for you.
Yeah, and I think that's super important to also point out is like, because I feel like a lot of times, like, I mean, sounds like, I know a lot of coaches, focus on calorie counting or macro counting, whatever it may be, which is a great tool. But if it's not for you, you need to be able to make sure that you tell your coach, like you said, like you need to have that communication and let them know. Because a lot of times I have started clients on that, and then it's like a couple weeks later they're telling me like they're stressing out every little calorie. I'm like, all right, oh, then like this isn't for you. Like we need to like change things up then. Like I appreciate when people are more open and honest with me. It's like, all right, let's find a different way to track this. Like calorie counting, is it the most accurate? I would probably say it is probably the closest way. I mean, you're literally weighing out and finding out exactly what you're putting in your body pretty much. But there are multiple other different avenues that we can take, but we just need to know that what's going to work out best for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I find that coaching, it's a two-way street because there's only
Yes.
so much you or I can do for our clients if they're not voicing what is and isn't working for them. So that's something that I very much clarify with my clients right from the get-go when we first start working together. Um, it's not a I expect to do things my way or the highway. It's a what are you comfortable with? Because I'm the kind of coach where I work with lifestyle clients. I'm not working with people that are prepping for like a bodybuilding show type thing where if you want to do that kind of thing, then yes, you have to actually weigh your food. You have to weigh like every freaking grain of rice type thing that you're having. I personally just don't want to coach clients like that, just because I am more interested in helping people find a sustainable lifestyle approach. And the bodybuilding world, it can be very, it can be risky in terms of it leads on average to at least half people that partake in that kind of shows to having eating disorders and body dysmorphia. And something that I will share as well about myself is that I have tried twice to do the beginning stages of preps for bodybuilding competitions. And again, the first time I did it, especially, I had I still had a really bad relationship with my body. So I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I just wanted to look a certain way. And I've told myself that if for some reason I were to ever do that again, it would more so be more of an experiment where I would log it and post about it in terms of this is how your body's going to feel when you go through this process. Fun facts type thing, maybe like a blog style sort of thing, as opposed to, yeah, I'm going to look like this and I'm going to look like this forever. kind of thing.
Yeah. I want to kind of also tie back into when we started to talk about communication between coach and client. I think that's a
Mhm.
great kind of conversation to bring up here is like something that I think doesn't get talked about enough. I know like when people like first start on with me, it's like I stress communication, like I think like 1,000 times when we first start working together, but like because it's so important. But like, and and I'm not wanting this like to turn into like like bad things with like like coaching client relationships and communication isn't good, but like more or less just like where else do you think it's super important for clients as the client themselves to be able to communicate things with their coach?
I think it's just really important for our clients to be 100% open and honest with me about um, with like what works for them for the program, what doesn't work for them for the program, what they actually have and haven't been doing. Because I've had a few clients kind of lie in their check-in where they say, "Oh yeah, I'm sticking to the macros." These are the clients that aren't comfortable with using like the calorie counting apps sort of thing, where they say that they weigh their food and I have to take them at their word, type thing. Where I've had to subtly like investigate. Okay, so there weren't like any drinks or any like extra sauces or whatever. And then I had a client that did that. And then he's like, oh, I had a few 200-calorie energy drinks. Oops, type thing. So it's just being 100% like open and transparent about what you're having. Like it's a I'm not judging type thing. This is just, I just need to know this information because this is going to affect how I need to change your macro prescription.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I think sometimes it's not even like that they're trying to like lie about it.
Mm.
It's almost like they just don't even, they're not even aware of it. Like people, like you said, like sometimes you have to ask, like, what about liquid calories? What about sauces? What about, like bites, lick, and taste, like all the things throughout the day, like that you're munching on, like the crust on your kid's sandwich, something, things like that. Like seems like little tiny things. And it is like that actual item, but they all add up. And I think a lot of people aren't even aware of how much that can quickly add up.
Exactly, especially if you're doing something as delicate as like reverse dieting as well. Like the key for a reverse diet to work is that consistency. And that's what's really going to help you stabilize your metabolism is being as consistent as possible. And then of course, if you're in a deficit, then it's going to affect the degree of the deficit that you're in. And if I find that I have a client that's in a deficit, which only 10% of my clients are right now, if I have them in a deficit and they seem to really want to have more, then I'll just change the degree of the deficit that I know they're going to stick to, which might mean, a bit of a slower fat loss, but still more consistent results. So if a client can't adhere to a 500-calorie deficit and does better at like a 300-calorie deficit or prefers to do more of a calorie cycle approach, that's fine. It's just a matter of letting like being aware of, yeah, those extra bites, looks, and tastes, or I'm really hungry, so I'm gonna have a spoonful of peanut butter type thing, and that's an extra 200 calories right there type thing.
Yep.
So it's just a help me help you type
Exactly.
scenario.
Exactly. So, another thing that you talked about earlier was like, like not only relationship, and we've talked a lot about like relationships here, but like relationship with like food, relationships with the working out in the gyms and all that and sports. And then also you mentioned like your relationship with yourself and like your body image and such. How has that changed throughout the past few years?
um so like I said earlier, I had a very different idea in my head of what I was supposed to look like. And when I was younger, I did a very good job of envisioning in my head, oh yeah, I look like this tiny petite person. But then it wouldn't line up with the family pictures that are being taken. So my eyes, I'm like, oh, there's something wrong with the camera. I don't actually look like that type thing.
Mhm.
But like I don't have that, societally accepted look. I mean, it's getting better now in present times, but back then, like I just as a female, I have broader shoulders, I have a barrel chest. I'm just not a tiny, naturally like structurally person. Like when I was at my absolute leanest, where you can actually see my abs, I'm still weighing like 160. I'm just a dense individual, and it took me a lot of time to be okay with that sort of thing. And it's just a matter of accepting your body's limitations. And actually, what it has me thinking of was the last conference you and I went to at Scottsdale at Coaching Con, where Sal DiStefano from Mind Pump was talking about how it took him a long time to accept that he's not going to look like Arnold.
Mhm.
Like he's a hard gainer. He has troubles putting on muscle. Like he's gotten better since he went on TRT, of course. But
Mhm.
like he was talking about how he has finally accepted that after many years as a young adult, trying to put on more weight type thing. So it's just a matter of accepting your body's limitations and genetics and learning to love what it still is able to do. Like it took, after however many years it took, I more so like to focus on what my body can do. It's like, you know what? I'm able to lift a lot of weight. My body is very functional. I have a lot of endurance. Like it does a lot for me. My body has carried me through so much stress. It's carried me through a lot of crappy times in my life. And I should be really grateful. And I don't have any crazy history of, illnesses in my family. So I prefer to have my clients write down what the body can do as opposed to what it can't do.
Yeah. And I think that's super important, is like, and pointing out all the like the good things. And like, of course, as anyone can tear down somebody else, like your own body. Like it's just, it's unfortunate, but we're naturally able to like pick out negative things. But it's like, when you're able to like then shift the focus to like, what am I capable of? Like, what am I proud of? What have I achieved? What do I like about my body? Like if you start looking in that kind of a lens, it really does help just heal your relationship overall with all things health in general. So I love that. Towards the end of the show, I always like to ask my guests, what are 2 or 3 things that you would recommend for anyone who's starting their health journey, or maybe like, trying to lose weight, get stronger, whatever it may be? Like, what are your 2 top tips you would give anybody
when they're just starting their health journey?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's a matter of just doing a couple new healthy habits at a time. Like if you are just starting and you're brand spanking new and you're not really sure where to start, just start with baby steps. It might seem small and insignificant to you, but it is actually substantial change to your body because it's new for your body. So if you just start with proper sleep hygiene and just hydration, you're already giving your hormones such a break. You're giving your hormones such a dose of love that it needs. Like it's just, don't underestimate the little changes that you make. So it's like, do like 2 new habits at a time, make that stick for a month, and then build on top of that. And then before you know it, a year from when you start, you're gonna be an entirely new person. You're gonna be just a whole new, healthier, stronger version of yourself. Yeah, so those are my only seeds of wisdom that I can think of. Of course, another thing that I have one more. Keep an eye out for the pages when it comes to like having a healthy body image as well. Keep an eye out for like social media accounts or pages that you find are very triggersome for you. So like there are some pages where a lot of people, unfortunately, like they use apps like Facetune and Photoshop and whatever to look a certain way. When you meet them in person, it's like, you look nothing like your damn picture. What the heck type thing. And it's like, okay, so keep an eye out for those accounts that are really triggersome for you. Like for me, as soon as I find out that somebody does that, I can't follow them because it's triggersome for me. And I find it creates a really just negative and toxic thoughts in your head. So be very cognizant of the content that you're consuming and how it affects your mindset for your day.
That's huge. That one is definitely a really, really big one. And I think we've all been guilty of like, being, on those profiles and be like, oh, I wish I had this, or I wish I was able to do that. And then it's like, hold up, like, I'm going to butcher this quote, but it's something like, you're just seeing the highlight reels of somebody's life. Like most of these accounts aren't showing their worst days. Like they're showing the same photo when they got jacked for a prep show, like 2 years ago, and that's the same photo they've been cycling for the past 2 years. So like, don't get all caught up in like just somebody else's profile. Like really like follow people who are going to be supportive of, who you are, where you're at right now, and can support you to reach your goals. So love that.
Yeah, exactly. Just be transparent about who you are, where you're at, whatever. Like we're all human. We're not perfect.
Exactly. Well, Debbie, this has been great having you onto the show. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and it's always refreshing chatting with like-minded people such as your amazing self.
Oh, thank you. If people want to connect with you and chat, or if you're taking more clients right now, like how can people reach out and talk to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So if people want to get in touch with me, I'm on Instagram And I'm on Facebook. So my Instagram handle is at dev.divine_nutrition. So DEV dot divine, DEVINE_nutrition. And I also am on Facebook just as Devia Flukiger. You'll see my name in the caption. I will not spell that for you. So yeah, of course, don't be shy. If you have just any questions, feel free to always DM me. I love meeting new people and helping them on their health journey.
Awesome. And guys, I'll put all of those links into the show notes. You're definitely go check it out and go reach out to Devia. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.